that I'm doing today, and very relevant to what we're seeing all around us in the world at large. It's been a big week, and I've had many personal messages come through to me on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok and Facebook as to how we take action in the face of injustice, in the face of hate, in the face of division. I mean, these are great questions to be asking, is because when we realize, and most of you that are watching this, either live or on the replay, will have had some kind of a spiritual awakening where you see the world very differently through a different lens. We often feel powerless in the face of injustice. What are we gonna do about it? And we've lived with this consciousness for eons, giving away our power to government and giving our power away to media to keep us informed. And what we do is we place our consciousness on all the things that we don't want to see. And therefore, by the law of manifestation and attraction, those things solidify in our world, in our experience, and become manifested. If you want peace in the world, you have to embody peace. You see, what happens is we often read the headlines and we see the outrage, the atrocity. Palestinian mother cradling her child that has been killed. And our hearts bleed and cry, and rightly so. And yet we feel powerless to act. What are we gonna do about it? What do we do? And all we experience is anger. We become the thing we so detest when we do so. How do we change our outward world? And as all the great spiritual teachers over the centuries have taught us, we must go within. We must be peace. Meditation is not doing it, it is being. Being at peace is not trying to do peaceful acts, it's being at peace. We've been trained that we are powerless. We are voters in our country, we have leaders that make decisions on our behalf, and yet we become observers in our world. And yet many have had an awakening experience to realize that they have come here at this point of time in human history to be the change. Now, we don't be in the world. Jesus said that be not of the world, be in it, but not of it. So we are not to be of it, but then how do we make the transition from adding to something to actually using our power to alchemize? Because this is what this live's all about today. This is about empowering you to be that change. The media is not going to give it to you. The government isn't going to get it to you. In fact, they are the ones that perpetrate, that profit from any division, conflict, unconsciousness, don't they? What does the media focus on? All the things, all the extremes that are wrong in this world. And they very rarely focus on love and unity and all the things that we want to create and manifest, don't they? I keep myself informed at very much arm's length these days. It's important that I'm informed, but I don't give my consciousness away. I don't give it all of my attention because I want to create the world in which I want to live in, and I do so by changing my inner state of consciousness. If you agree, give me a thumbs up. I want you to know this. Hello, Paula, and hello, Kevin. You know, I've written some notes today because I've given this a lot of thought. I haven't just jumped on here willy-nilly to talk to you today. I've spent some days in meditation preparing what I want to share with you. And I'm going to refer to what I got. You know, this is an invitation to transcend. This war that we're seeing is an invitation to you. It's an invitation to me. It's an invitation to us to transcend. We have an opportunity to do it differently this time. Most of you are probably old enough where you've seen wars, even in the Middle East. You've seen them come, you've seen them go. And yet, generally the same trajectory plays out, doesn't it? Us versus them. They do this to us, we do that to them. So the same consciousness that created the war, the destruction, the disease, is the same consciousness which is to retaliate, to now pay back. And yet, if we look at what is going on in the Middle East, it is the innocence, regardless of religion, creed, nationality, it is the innocents that are the casualties. And so innocence, Israeli father perhaps shielding his son from some kind of a missile, is an act of love. And yet at the same time, an Israeli mother cradling her child and fleeing and running to save is innocence at the same time. You see, when we realize that we are one, we do not get caught up in taking sides. When you take a side, you know, Mother Teresa was asked once to, I believe it was around the, it may have been the Gulf War, don't quote me directly on this, but they asked her whether she would stand up and fight and rally against war. And she said, I will never stand against anything, but I will march for peace. You know, Nelson Mandela, he was locked up for 27 years. And many of you will know that story, and many of you will not know the full details. Essentially, he was locked up for the color of his skin, for being another. This is during the apartheid days in South Africa, and he was locked in solitary confinement on an island for 27 years. It's a long time. Some of you haven't even lived that long. And when he was finally released, there was a consensus given that great war would break out between us and them, black and white, and millions would die as a result. Do you know that didn't happen? Because Nelson Mandela spent his days and hours and time in solitude, on his knees, praying to God, praying to the divine. And rather than all of this death and destruction, he was the voice and the embodiment of unity. He united a country, became president. He's got statues now celebrating his life. A great man. You see, we often just look to the leader to fix things. Or we often look to the leader, even within the spiritual community, that is going to lead us or save us or be the remedy. Even when it comes to our personal healing, we look outside of ourselves to try to reach for something that we feel that we do not have. And yet when you realize that everything that you search for, the peace in the world is in you. The healing that you seek in your physical body to manifest is in you. The unity, the oneness, the consciousness. Consciousness is everything. Consciousness is what is going to create war, or it's going to create peace. Where does it come from? From within. The hate that simmers within one's heart that you did this to us is the one that throws the first bomb. And you might say, well, I can't believe that is going on, but I would pose a question to you as you listen now. What war is in your own life? It might be a in-law. It could be a mother, a father, child, a colleague at work. You see, we often want to attach to the extremes. We look at the extremes in the world, and yet we neglect to face the war within ourselves, the war in our own lives. I'll use this personal analogy because I'm with it all the time, but I work in the spiritual community and I see so much division. My book sold more copies than your book. My message is better than yours. I have more followers. I have more people listen to me. Competitiveness, not supporting each other, not seeing the oneness. And yet, really, we're all doing the same work. In fact, I'll be really honest with you because this is my platform and I get that opportunity to be really direct and honest. I haven't had a lot of support from colleagues in this community because I found it to be really competitive. And yet I know the message I share is all about solutions, spiritual solutions to problems, to the problems that we face in the world. This is like Jesus used this beautiful analogy, a house divided against itself will not stand. And yet we find ourselves divided even in our own communities. Unity, oneness starts within you. When you realize, and I so hope you get this one thing, please, this is important, listen to this. When we realize that we are the solution, that our inner work, our state of consciousness, our spiritual practice, our individual, if you want to call it that, energy, is the remedy to all of the disease, the division, the war, the injustice in the world, suddenly you become not insignificant, but you begin to connect to your birthright. The divinity that created me, the divinity that created Nelson Mandela, the divinity that created Christ is the same divinity that is in you. But there's been a misalignment. And let me say, the leaders of any terrorist group or any country that incites violence and war, the same place that we came from, they came from. That divinity, that divine, and that is the place that we will all return to when we leave these physical bodies in a short, reasonably short amount of time, regardless of our age, because we're not here that long. So we all come from the same place and we all return to the same place. And yet the journey is often warped, isn't it, with this unconsciousness that I speak of, or rather consciousness that creates. You see, why is forgiveness important? You look at this, let's look at this in the face of war. You killed my family member, my grandmother, my child, my whatever. And I've even seen this here in Australia at rallies that have gone on where people are siding with one side and outrage. When we don't learn to forgive and alchemize, we stay separate, we stay in division, and we perpetrate the thing we despise. If you want peace in the world, you need to be peace in your own life. You need to embody the consciousness of peace. And we are not trying to achieve peace. We are not trying to achieve love. We rather need to learn to be love. See, this is where, even with areas like the law of attraction, people go wrong. You don't get what you want, you get what you are. You want peace, you need to be the peace in which you seek, and let that emanate out into the world and affect all those around you. You are so much more powerful. You have so much more connection to the interconnectedness of the human family than you even give yourself credit for or realize. And yet we feel stuck, we feel isolated, and we feel powerless. And yet in actuality, we are the ones with the power. If there was no one listening to a media that were perpetrating division to sell and to profit, then there would be no media. Or the media would match the consciousness of the people. If governments around the world were not being supported by their people, then they would not be re-elected. And so, yes, we have the power, we always have. And you might say, I'm just one person, Paul. So was Nelson Mandela, the man that united a whole nation and demolished an apartheid state. Many people, Jesus was a uniting force, even though he was misinterpreted and people used him as unconsciousness does for gain. One person it takes. You know, and I don't know how many people will see this live alone, but if this live sparks one person to make a deviation towards knowing what I'm talking about and stop seeking something and being it, and then affecting 2, 3, 4, 5 people, and we all do this, suddenly consciousness changes. Meditation has a vast impact, and I've heard many different times when this has been implemented, where meditation has actually transformed local communities. It stopped violence by 98% in one circumstance. And I refer to a time when there was a particular place, I don't know the full details of it because I was listening to Wayne Dyer share this only yesterday when I was listening. And he said there was a certain place where it was made mandatory that all of this community, and it had a prison as well, were made to meditate. So the prison wardens had to meditate, the people within that community had to meditate, all of the leaders had to meditate. They stopped any insurgents, any violence, any atrocities by like 98% because they became meditators. Meditation is one of the most powerful tools of not doing, once again, not doing, but being. And cultivating and actualizing. You see, we don't need to try to be or do or get or change anything. We have to actualize ourselves as human beings, and from our beingness, from our oneness, from that realization, we become the change in which we seek. If you agree with me, let me know. Let me know in the chat. Give me a thumbs up or something. I've got more notes to share. This burns in my heart because you know what? I have been meditating and ruminating and thinking about this for days, and I wanted to be prepared, and that is why I took notes. Oneness, understanding, compassion rather than reacting. Reacting, we see the atrocities, and I know it hurts when we see it. You know, I'm an animal lover, as a lot of you have, and my heart bleeds every time I see something on social media where I see an animal harmed. I shared a rescue dog video on my Instagram the other day, and it's, you know, the people of it resonate so deeply with people. My heart bleeds every time I see injustice in the world. This does not make us less human. It empowers us to be the change which we seek. And if I can just get this one message across today, is that you have so much more power than you have given yourself credit for. We all came here from a non-physical place, and we will all return to that non-physical place. What are you going to do with the time that you have? Are you going to stay unconscious? Remember, this isn't a doing. I'm not saying you need to give money to charities and animal welfare and you know, towards organizations that are going to help people on both sides of this war. Your beingness, you actualizing and becoming, is what the call to action here is. We know that meditation, the eminence, the energy, creates change because we live in a universal field of consciousness, a oneness of all existence. And when change happens, it affects the totality of it all. You think of cancer when it enters the body. In a negative context, the cancer enters in, it begins to spread from cell to cell to cell, or a virus in a computer. And on the other hand, when we look at our ability to affect all the cells in the human family which we are connected to, then we have the ability to affect cell to cell to cell to cell. I hope you get that analogy. So we can't control the outside, but we can control the inside. Stop looking out there somewhere for everything. Even people in the spiritual community won't tell you this. And I have always been very upfront and honest about this. And I know it doesn't make me as popular and I don't get the viral videos as others do. But I want to tell you the truth is that you are the power which you see. You do not need someone. You do not need an intermissionary, someone that's going to give you a course that's going to give you the answers. You need you. Now, I can guide you, I can inspire you, but it is you which is going to do the work, the change, and be the change. Likewise, I work in the healing space. I do healing sessions almost every day, one-on-one with people. It is not me that does the healing. And as I always point out, if I was the one doing the healing, gosh, would I be under a lot of pressure, because one day someone gets healed and some days others don't. It is not that there are better people or that I didn't do a good job or I did or did not have a good day. It is that some people make the connection and then some people don't. Some people are going to incarnate even though we emanate from the same space, the nothingness that we came from. Some are going to incarnate and awaken and have a aha moment, perhaps, an awakening experience. And some are going to, what Abraham Maslow called human actualization, self-actualization. Some are going to actualize, and then some are going to stay ignorant and unconscious, and they will return to the same place regardless. So how do we become one? We can meditate. We can come together. I'm going to do some live meditation experiences on this. Let me know if you're interested, maybe in the chat. I'm just looking. Hello, Karen. Hello, Robin. Hello, Trevor and Jay and Laura. I'm going to do a live meditation where we come together and we be peace. And from the beingness of us connecting together, we emanate that peace out into the world. Couldn't we stop one bomb from being thrown? Can we stop one life from being saved? Absolutely we can, because that is how powerful we are. How do we change the injustice in the world? Will we become the thing that we want to see in the world? How do we manifest the life that we want, the reality that we see? Do we try to just get stuff out there? No, we get what we are. Change your inner world and watch your outer world transform. Before I close, do we have any questions from anybody? And perhaps you are watching the replay. These people are saying that they're interested in this. Yes, go within or go or not go without. Thank you, Terry. So we have power. We always actually did have power. And I hope even today is a reminder to you to remember just how powerful, how divine you are. You know, I was inspired by the great late Wayne Dyer. I think to a period about 14 years ago when I was going through a very challenging time and I felt very powerless in my own life. I was in a situation that I couldn't change, that I was stuck in. And I would take daily walks and I would listen to Wayne Dyer share. And he helped me change my consciousness. He helped empower me to then begin a trajectory in my own life to help others, because this is what the universe does. We heal, and then life invites us to help others heal also. I shared a great quote on this the other day, I think even here on YouTube, that hurting people hurt people, but healed people heal people. And healed people help people. We got to heal first. And perhaps you haven't done the healing work. You can reach out to me. I work with people one-on-one. I have a waiting list, but I always encourage people to join it because eventually I do get to people. You can do so at my website. You find links on here. Someone said something about Wayne Dyer. Let me read this, Terry. Wayne Dyer, you'll see it when you believe it. Yes, one of my favorite quotes from Wayne. Why was Wayne so popular? Why was Dr. Wayne Dyer so popular? This is a good question. He had a way of articulating pretty profound spiritual truths in a very conversational, easy way to understand. And, you know, I feel very inspired by his life. He's no longer with us, but he left a legacy that you and I can step into. Maybe you are in the healing space yourself, but perhaps you're a practitioner. Let me know actually in the chat. Who else is, I need help, I need a mentor. Derek, reach out to me, DM me on Instagram here. I'll happy to converse with you. who may be listening, or even let me know in the replay, is in the healing space themselves. You might be a Reiki practitioner, you could be a speaker, you could be an author. Let me know in the chat. Any of us, I want to be a reminder to this because I don't hear this said a lot. We are one. We have a healing message. We're not competing with each other for numbers, growth. I know when I share a Dolores Cannon video, it gets huge amounts of views because Dolores is very well established, not with us either, but very well known, resonates, and she absolutely helped lead me to a place of healing. But inevitably, the greats that we have looked towards, Wayne Dyer, Dolores Cannon, Louise Hay, to name just a few, are no longer with us. But what they do leave us is a legacy, a banner to take forward and to be the remedy for this generation, for this coming war, for this time that we are living in. Dolores called it the greatest time in human history, where we are seeing how beautiful. Robin is a pranic healer, or she's learning it. Well, you add to the beautiful tapestry, Robin, of what makes up the totality of what we all represent. We are not in competition with each other. We are not here to compete. We are here to complete. And we are here to complete a mission and a work that we all came here to do. But more so than doing, let this be my final words, to be that. I'm going to leave it there. I always close every live I do with these words. It's my affirmation, make it yours, that the best is yet to come, regardless of what you see, regardless of what you feel. Watch those words solidify in your life and experience and become manifest, because I do it every single day. I love you all so much. Thank you for being with me and listening and sharing in this. And even if you're watching the replay, do share, do like. That helps get this message to more people. Thank you.